Hello everyone. Welcome to Tier 2 Racing Action. My name is Strifium. It is time for the Italian Grand Prix. And joining me for the epic adventure, well, Unicorn, welcome back.
Yes, Jeff, thank you. It's good to be here, here for Tier 2, of course, on this Wednesday night. And, well, Monza, what a track it's been so far, both in real life and here in MRL already this week. It's been very, very exciting. Lots of overtaking available here at the Temple of Speed, and we'll see just who has the most speed here tonight in Tier 2.
That's right, round 5, Tier 2 Racing, Italy. We are here around the Temple of Speed. 11 turns, of course, 5.8 kilometers or so, and it is a very, very intense track. As you mentioned, we've seen it all week long, and we're here now for the 5th out of 6 races here in Italy this week. Next week, we are on a break week, and then we are going to be back large and in charge with Japan, Britain, Azerbaijan, Hungary, Singapore, as well as France, I was going to say Singapore again there, Spain, Austria, Mexico, and then, of course, Brazil for the finale. And we have a second break week after Singapore as well. Now, with that, this is a very intense grid. Save for maybe one driver who's been dominating in a very good way so far. We are referring to Mr. Dason, 40 or so points ahead of Mr. Yagswell there. 43 points for Yagswell. You can see 94 points is the total for Dason. It is a very good lead right now. Dougie Falcons has been clawing that back. He's very tight to Yagswell there, and you can see Azir not too far behind in 4th position. Sindako, things very tight all the way down this lineup's Yoda, 10th position after he collected a podium last week. Bushy Ants, he's starting to get more points as he had a better finish as well. See the Constructors' Championship, well, Williams 114 points, Red Bull there with 42, and then Aston Martin with 41. Dougie Falcons having done all of the point scoring for Aston Martin, having Amir Barlos being absent. I think he's been replaced coming into round 5 as well. Now, with that said, we are just about ready to go racing here for round 5, and I'm very, very excited to do so, as this grid has been waiting for Italy for, well, just like everyone else now, 4 or 5 weeks. And we're here on the Temple of Speed after a very, very intense real-life World Championship and endurance race this past weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned, we got everyone in nice and early as well so we could get going. But yeah, right now the championship very, very tight in the midfield. Like you said, the Constructors' Champion though, with Dason up at the top of the driver's standings, and you've got Pro to go there and the other Williams right in the thick of things as well. So they're scoring a huge haul of points, whereas where there's a lot of drivers on these sort of 20-ish points, Pro to go right there in 9th with 20 on the dot really just helps boost his team well clear with, well, obviously Dason's points, but adding those two together, having someone in the mix and someone clear at the top really helps. You've got Red Bull. Obviously, they're the hunting pack right now, it would seem, and Aston Martin, like you mentioned, with Dougie Falcons. We'll see how they fare, but right now we are just about to get everyone readied up in the lobby, and that's obviously going to get us into racing action, but not before 18 minutes of qualifying, where there aren't any points on offer. Although it's very, very important to get a good start here.
Just waiting to get all these racers into the lobby, dialed in, ready to race for 18 minutes of qualifying, and then 27 laps of very, very fast racing here. And one thing to talk about is the potential element of rain that can come through in these races. Of course, big shout out to everybody in the chat. Good to have you all here viewing along with us. Of course, tell your friends, tell your family. It is time for action, as we are now getting the countdown sorted out and everyone ready into this lobby for the qualifying. But last night saw a very interesting racing dynamic for our America's Tier 1 division. That replay now live on the YouTube channel. But I'll tell you, we saw 27 laps of wet running, Unicorn. However, it wasn't on wet tires. It was a 27 lap campaign in wet conditions on dry tires with DRS enabled around Monza. A very hard, very, very intense race, and I think that everybody that got through it was happy in the end. We'll have to see how this grid can now fare themselves around the 11 turns of Monza themselves, should they see any wet conditions. And we'll really get a good look in just a few moments' time as we are loading in to the session. What is the weather going to be?
Yeah, and the conditions you mentioned from yesterday's race, they really are sort of the worst you can get. Obviously, no one wants a complete and utter downpour on the driver's side, but at least then you know what tires you want to be on. Whereas if you've got this sort of mixed conditions where it's not wet enough for inters, but really the slicks aren't what you want to be on, and you get that point where the confusion comes in as your tires die out because that's just how the tires work. They're going to become more slippery, but is that the track getting a little bit slipperier in itself? And does that mean it's the time to go to Inter? So those sort of conditions, very, very confusing, very, very complex for the drivers to get their head around. And we'll see how it does. And there's plenty of chicanes here. So being on the wrong tires really can hurt you and can even see you out of the race, coming out of Ascari, probably the most prolific place to crash. But here in qualifying, the sun is shining here in Monza. And I'm sure that's a big sigh of relief for the 17 drivers we do have tonight.
Yeah, everyone going back to school. A lot of availabilities have begun to change. You can see 17 drivers on the grid tonight so far. We may have a couple of racers come through and join us later on, but Freeware has already come through and told us that it is going to be a wet race here for this Tier 2 division, and I imagine there's going to be a good chunk of the racers on this evening's grid not too thrilled about that. Yagsol will be the first driver to come out into the circuit, out of the pit lane in the Red Bull. And, well, we may have ourselves a dry quali, but things are going to get very, very tricky come the race.
And if it's a full wet race like it sounds like it will be, that makes qualifying a little bit more difficult because some people here might opt for the wet setup now, and because of Park Fire, mate, I would not blame them at all. So they might be slower qualifying times than we expect to see from a Tier 2 grid, but obviously that's because we do have that dynamic of the rain here that will be coming. We'll just quickly go through who we have on side screen. We've got Yagswar up at the top there, like you said, first out of the pit lane as well in the Red Bull. We've got Kai over in the Alfa Romeo, obviously home Grand Prix for all of the Italian teams here. And Psycho in the Mercedes, Arias in the AlphaTauri, Vincent Nyquist in the Ferrari, Sindarko and Jake in the two Hasses, Azir in the AlphaTauri, Crampy reserving in the Williams today, Adesi in the McLaren Kentucky Falcons in the Aston Martin, and then Yoda, like you mentioned, coming off the back of a podium for the Alpine. Basin, championship leader, of course, we'll see how he fares here. Then Daniel Manaf, another reserve, and the last but not least, the reserve of Mr. Alex Bitto there in 15th on the times at the moment. And then we have Landers Milkman and Noel Coleman, who's opted to go for the mediums here, but here we have
reserves on track, but Yagsol now, Unicorn, he's taking us for a lap into turn 1.
Yeah, here we go through into the Retafilo chicane, turns 1 and turns 2, and exit. Very, very important out of turn 2 here, so you can carry all the speed you need through the Curva Grande here. This very infamous long right-hander here in the Red Bull. Then, of course, down into the Della Rogier chicane. This left-right, the curbs here can be very tricky to get right, but Yagsol not having any problems there in the Red Bull. Very, very nicely done on this banker lap. Then through the first of the two Lesmos, through there nice and clean as well, using all the curbing on the inside and outside coming out of the second Lesmos. DRS enabled then to come all the way down another long straight here. Overtaking possible down here, but not particularly likely as he fires down into the Ascari chicane. 3 corners that are so tricky to get right lap after lap. But again, Axel not having any problems here on his banker lap time, and if he's got a wet setup as well, then he needs to be careful too, because obviously they might not have the downforce that they're expecting, the downforce they practice with. But then into the final corner, the Curva Alboreto, newly renamed from Parabolica, of course, but out of there, hugging to the right onto the pit wall, and it's a 1:19.786 to open up the time. And given that's a banker lap time on a potentially wet setup, I don't think that's a bad effort at all, Jeff.
No, definitely not a bad effort. One of the quicker times we've seen in this grid already in Italy this week, and in the grids, I should say, coming through Italy this week. The sub 120s, very good, and you can see Yoda now in the Alpine pushing a 20.039. He's just shy of that sub 120 range as more drivers push through to set laps.
Yeah, Crampy and his run, he did have his first run, but it's not to be for him. We'll see as more time start to trickle through, at least you'd expect to, as you know, we do have drivers coming up to the line, but I think most of them just starting their first lap here. So just sort of working out, I think, what sort of time, sort of setup they want to be on in the pit lane has taken a little bit more time because we're almost 5 minutes into qualifying. We've only got 2 laps on the board, which at this stage, very, very uncommon to see that. But we have got a few invalid runs. Kai, Psycho, Crampy, all of them have a lap on their tyres, which means they've done the lap, but they haven't got round successfully. Azir goes second fastest at 1:19.935 for him, 2 tenths down on Yagswol, and sometimes are starting to come through now, but there are invalidations all up and down the grid here. I think Jake might be the next person to settle that. Some of the Psycho is going again on those mediums. But here comes the pair of them to the line. They go Psycho 121 flat, but it's Jake with a 1:19.696 to establish himself on the top of the time in town, and Desi on 1:20.462. So a little bit more time there for the McLaren to find. But again, this is just the banker laps, and they might not be on the setups that they're used to practicing on.
That's a big issue coming out of Ascari. That is Dougie Falcons in the Aston Martin as another driver comes through to set a very fast run there, as it's Dayson, a 19.392, pushing himself into the grid. And I wanted to take a moment to mention Jake. Jake loves it here in Monza. I think this is his fastest circuit. At 6.96 ahead of Yagswol, very competitive, and Dayson coming in saying he likes it maybe even more so. A very competitive grid. Vincent Nyquist in the other Ferrari has begun. Lando's Milkman, he did a 20.334 in the Alfa Romeo a few moments ago.
Yeah, and you have to bear in mind that we do have the performance patch now, and things are changed a little bit. And like you mentioned, Jake does love this track. He was very quick in the last iteration of the game, and he seems to have carried at least some of that speed over here as he currently sits P2 on the timing tower. But again, there are changes, and some very recent changes, so we'll see if that affects the drivers over the next hour or so here. But right now, looking very, very strong in terms of a close field. Azir, Daniel Manaf, very, very tight. 5,000 separate them, and there's a few outliers here and there. But again, this is just the beginning of qualifying as Vincent Nyquist makes his way through the Ascari chicane. And he's only scored 6 points for Ferrari, but he'll be looking to increase his total at the home of the Scuderia here in Monza. And a very, very important race in the calendar for Ferrari, and of course Ferrari's fans, the Tifosi here. But here comes Vincent to the line. What's it going to be? It's a 1:19.766, just put some 200ths ahead of Yagsol in that Red Bull. Current runner-up in the driver's standing, so a nice place to put his car.
It's a very, very competitive qualifying already, as we have from first down to 9th position out of the 10 times only that have been set a 1 second separation. And it's even tighter when you get to the front of things, 1 through 4 all within 4 tenths. Angel pushing right now. Mr. Angel Arias coming through in the AlphaTauri in Parabolica to come into the pit lane, as he's got that low fuel light on. And we have a few drivers who have begun, as it is Mr. Yagswol in the Red Bull pushing, and Mr. Crampy has just begun a lap, as Noel Carlman is about to potentially round out a lap in the Mercedes. What's it going to be from him? Good for 4th position, a 19.770, and he is another driver within that 4/10 range.
Yeah, very, very nice lap from him. One thing I don't understand at Arias' lap stuff, he seems to have dropped it really early on. It was before Ascari that he dropped that lap and then came into the pit lane, so not quite sure what happened and went wrong for him, as no one is letting past drivers. It's a yellow flag, but he's not crashed, it doesn't seem. Crampy coming out of the second Lesmes. We'll see where he can go here in the reserve capacity for Williams, of course.
Big shout out to Yoda coming through with the resub for 9 months. Thank you so much for the support to Yoda, and best of luck today in the race.
Absolutely looking to continue his success from last week, but really kickstarted his campaign at P2, 18 points on the board. And here comes Crampy out of the final corner. Where is he going to find himself? His teammates on P1. Well, he was before Crampy came across with a 1:19.337, sorry. And it's a Williams 1-2 right now And I'm sure they are absolutely ecstatic with that as the young Brit joins his teammate up at the top.
Sindaco, the other Haas, goes fourth quickest here. Home race for Sindaco tonight. The Italian within the front two rows at the moment. It's a 3-4 for Haas on the rear of the Williams squad.
Yeah, so we're getting some constructors battling it out for some all important points here is what you love to see. And like you say, Sindaco home race. We'll see what he's doing. He's flying right now in that Haas, and well, it looks like he might have dropped this lap as well. He has, as he just completely straight lines the Della Roggia chicane and goes off into the off track to let Daniel Manaf through.
There goes Yoda, 19.681 from the Alpine. He splits the two rows, and well, there's Jagsol in the Red Bull coming into the second row ahead of Yoda. The separation between them less than a tenth.
There's been a big mishap for Daniel Manaf and the Aston Martin. He has not had his way coming out of the first Lesmo. He's just kicked out the rear, tried to catch it, and as such, the car has sort of pendulumed from underneath him, swung one way, then round to the other. And he's just spun out, smashing the braking board into the second Lesmo as Kai comes across fourth at 1:19.6. So Daniel Manaf not having the best of time as Jake, well, he re-establishes a Haas behind the Williams as he goes third fast at 1:19.5. His teammate won't be joining him. Like I mentioned, he dropped that and he is into the pit lane. Got plenty of time though in this session. We're 10 minutes through, almost 11. But the lap around here, not too long, 1 minute, just under 1:20, of course.
Alex Bitto pushing in the McLaren right now to begin a lap, yet to set a time. Dougie Falcons, I think, is on an in-lap with that fuel indicator on. Angel Arias pushing through Curva Grande in the AlphaTauri. 3 drivers yet to set times, 15 through 17 on the tower.
Yes, there's another yellow flag popping up. It looks like there's an Alfa Romeo, but I imagine it's just letting people through. And it doesn't look like that is the case, as Azir will be rounding out his lap, and he is really hugging the right-hand side. It's a 19.706, and that puts him 7th, but over 2/10 found for the Spaniard.
It's a very tight grid right now. First all the way down to 14th, 1.1 is the separation. Jason
More drivers.
has just begun a lap. Sorry to interrupt.
Got more and more drivers piling up at the pit lanes, just waiting for that final run. And here comes Angel Arias to the line. Where does he go? He goes 14th fastest. It's his first time of the session, as I believe that was Vincent Nyquist improving into 4th, a 1:19.515 from him. So just Alex and Dougie Falcons to set a time, but one of those is about to change, I think, as well, Alex came across the line.
Yeah, he had invalidated that
and he's
run.
not pushing.
I think he unfortunately invalidated, and then he came through maybe just wanting to get some practice on track right now. Not entirely sure, but it is unfortunate to find oneself in that position. The McLaren not going to be overly thrilled about that here in Italy.
Yeah, Dyson. See what he could do as he comes through Ascari in that Williams. Well, he's championship leader, but his teammate, Crampy, of course, able to score points for the Williams constructor. Not here in Tier 2, of course, but as a whole in the combined constructors, he can. Currently sitting on that top spot, very, very close between the two. And, well, Dyson retakes his claim up at the top, 1:19.2. Exactly 3/10 faster than Jake's lap, who sits in P3. So it looks like it might be another dominant evening from Dyson. But of course, one mistake from him, one safety car could ruin a strategy. And that's what we love to see, those dynamics at play. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be seeing a wet race. It's dry here in qualifying. We will be seeing a wet race. And the guys who are, a bit off the pace at the moment might just be because they're using a more aggressive wet setup and it doesn't perform as well, or they just can't handle it as well in the dry. But when they get to the wet, well, it could be a completely different story, as Noel Coleman is going to come straight into the pit lane. He's not happy with whatever he did, as Alex Bido also trudges back to the pit lane, and he hasn't set a time yet, Striff, so he really needs to get a move on in terms of setting a lap for himself. Same with Dougie Falcons as well. Here comes Yagtor. He's starting a flying lap in the Red Bull down into the Red Affilio chicane. Currently P5, and he's currently P2 in the driver's standings as well. So looking to try and get a little bit higher up right now, of course, behind two other drivers in this division that he's not beating in the standings, Jake and Vincent, and then the reserve of Crampy as well up there in P2, and of course Jason leading the championship and leading the charge here in qualifying 2. Just touches a wheel on the gravel. That might have shaved a little bit of speed off for the Red Bull, but won't have impacted him too badly here as we approach the 3 minutes remaining mark. We have got a driver host as the Red Bull slides, catches it well, but that will cost him probably the entire lap, because that was a pretty big catch. But it won't be too long until we see everyone start to really flood out of the pit lane. And yeah, I think Jaxwell has definitely dropped that lap. So we'll drop back to a Desi then in the McLaren. Currently on a 120 flat. He'll want to find some time. He's 8/10 off the pole right now, as he invalidates coming through a Scary Strift. Not good at all for the McLaren.
Desi, Yags there. I mean, Yags coming to the line, gonna start a new lap after we saw him with that snap. A Desi with the invalidation. These are the last few moments in qualifying. You don't want to be doing these things. You don't want to be having these problems.
As we still see a lot of people now on outlaps. 2 minutes to go in the session. Crampy's flying. He's looking to once again take that top spot away from his teammate. I'm sure Dayson would prefer it if he didn't, but we'll see what he can do as he invalidates through Ascari again. So this is what we've seen throughout the week, where people push through Ascari, and when you're trying to find every ounce of speed, you have to try and take the track limits to their absolute maximum, and that often results in an invalidation here. And well, that's exactly what's happened to Crampy there.
Gonna start again.
I think the next person to set the flyer will be Psycho in the Mercedes, his teammate right now, P10, just inside where will be points in the race. Psycho right now in 15th, slowest car to have set a lap, but it's a 120.5, so that is half a second slower than his nearest rival in Arias. And he did set on the soft as well. No one's time there is a medium run. We did see a few of those early on, but everyone was either beating that on the soft or didn't set one in the first place. But here he comes, the Mercedes to the line. What's it going to be for him? It's a 120.394. Still 15th, but a little bit of improvement. Very much struggling here in Monza at the moment, but points on the table in the race, always a possibility for anyone who could just stick it out a little bit.
Oh, I see Sindako. I only just noticed this right now. He's definitely paying tribute to the day I made a mistake with his pronunciation. Sindako di Ligliano, I think is how I said it. Something like this. Maybe he'll have to adjust it even further.
Well, I'm sure he'll be delighted however you pronounce it if you declare him on the podium later on, as Crampy retires from the session. I do believe that's in the pit, but Sindaki right now 9th. Well, he said it's his home race, so he'll be hoping to do a little bit better than that in the race, I should think. Currently P5 in the standings, a podium to his name, and well, that was on the top step. So if he can replicate that tonight, I'm sure he'll be a very happy man. But as we see a few more drivers, a lot of drivers coming into the pit lane now, but there are still drivers out on flyers. Jake is one. Jason is one as well. And those two already up in the hot top spots. Yoda right now, last week, podium sitter, his first few points in the new season. Where does he go? He doesn't find an improvement. Half a second down. It's a 119.681 for him.
Here comes Jake now, the Swede. He's pushing out of the Curve Alboreto, and he will hold it tight to the line. Where does he go here? He goes good for second, and it was a very narrow miss on that pole position. Separation, just half a tenth. You can see Dayson. Well, he makes it even bigger. It's a 19 flat coming out of him, a 0.33 from the Williams with a very rapid time, showing what he's capable of. At the finale of this qualifying session, now we have Vincent low fuel. He will not be improving. And with that, Unicorn, Dayson, and Jake, our front row here.
Yeah, great performance from Dayson there. You know, just solid all round. Never looked, you know, like the only time it looked like he might be beaten is when Crampy was on the top step for a little bit. He invalidated a couple of those late runs, and well, he's disappointed with that. But it's a Williams 1-3. They'll be overjoyed with that. But Jake splitting the two late on in the session. That Haas was looking fast all evening. We'll see whether they continue that form in the rain, though, because the race is going to be wet. We do know that, and we'll go for the rest of the qualifying in just a moment. But right now, here in the dry conditions, whether they've used dry or wet setups, it is Dayson and Jake on the front row, the Williams alongside the Haas. Then the other Williams are Crampy, reserving here up from tier 3, so he can score points for his constructor here, of course, in the combined constructors. Well, he sits third, so a very strong result from him. And Williams looking to take a lot of points away for the combined constructors. At the moment, obviously, the race could be very different. The Axwell starts fourth alongside Crampy. Then it's Azir and Vincent on the third row. Ty, Turkey Falcons on the fourth row. And then Yoda and Sindarko at his home Grand Prix here in Monza starts in the, or rounds out the top 10. And then it's two Mercedes behind them on the sixth row. Psycho ahead of Noel there. But we'll go through everyone on the formation lap, of course. And, well, tires aren't really an issue here because it's just going to be the wets, whether it's intermediates or full wets, we're yet to see. But a quick look in a moment. But everyone loading in, they're getting everything finalized, seeing what the strategy is saying, because they won't have done a huge amount of wet strategy planning. I imagine it will just be a one-stop, unless, of course, we see changeable conditions. But there are some huge puddles in the pit lane, Striff.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be surprised if we start on the inters. I think this is full wets already.
This is full wets straight off the hop. When you see that level of standing water just sitting in a pit lane, of course you're going to see the full wets. You can see them a little bit if you take a glimpse on over to that Mercedes garage. I am very excited for this race. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Italy. Welcome to Tier 2 Round 5 racing for, of course, the 5th season of MRL. We're here in Italy where it is a very, very wet circuit. My name is Striffy. I'm here from Canada. We're used to a little bit of wet here in Canada. 2011, shout out for that. And of course, well, Unicorn, I'd say no one's more used to the wet weather than you.
Yeah, I mean the UK, we get a fair bit of it, so bit of a specialist over here. But yeah, we'll see just how everyone here fares, and obviously it's going to be interesting to see, because sometimes I think we saw it in Spa, you know, not too long ago, where you see some people, they haven't picked the right setup for the equation. They prioritize qualifying potentially, and that could cost them in the race. Or maybe we see some of these people fall off during the start of things and come back towards the end. But it does look like it is going to be the full wets for everyone, and it is. But we'll just go through that grid again. It is Dayson, championship leader, on pole position. He lines up alongside Jake there in the Haas, and we'll be mentioning he is very strong here at Monza, one of his favorite tracks, and we'll see how he can fare. He separates the two Williams because he's got Crampy behind him on the second row alongside Jagswell in fourth, and it's Azir in fifth with Vincent in the Ferrari. Home, of course, for the Scuderia is Monza, so he'll be looking to have a good result today, as well as the Italian team of Alfa Romeo behind him. Kai starts alongside Dougie Falcons. Then it's Yoda, fresh from his podium last week. We'll see what he could do with Sindarko, his home race, the Italian racing for Haas, his teammate up in P2. We'll see whether they can come away with some nice points for the squad. Then it's the two Mercedes starting outside the points. It's Psycho alongside Noel Coleman. Then Alex Bitter reserving for McLaren starts 13th with Daniel Manaf there in 14th. Adesi starts 15th in the other McLaren, and there's Milkman in the Alfa Romeo starts 16th, with Arias rounding out the back of this grid in 17th place in the Alpha Tauri. And obviously, well, tyre strategy, we don't really have to go through that shift because it's full wets for everyone.
Lando with a bit of a disconnection on my end here. I don't know if that's a desync or not. Hopefully we don't have any of those issues. We've seen those issues come through with the past couple of races where some of the drivers may be desynced on the spectator end, but hopefully everyone in and all right. And so we've got Dason, Jake, and Crampy, our top three here as we come through into the Curve Alboreto.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, Lando, if he is disconnected, can get in. He is towards the rear of the grid, so it shouldn't cause any problems if he does have the glitch where car doesn't start as he retakes control of it. And, well, he doesn't actually have anyone behind him. Arias will start on the other side of the grid, so that shouldn't cause any problems here, fingers crossed, but it does look like he might have had a game crash there. So hopefully he gets back in sooner rather than later, but everyone else lining up on the grid, and we're just about ready to get going here in the Temple of Speed.
Potential desync here is something that we've had to deal with all week in these races because of the latest patch. So we are going to watch this race start. We are going to see what we can do, and well, hopefully we don't have any major issues actually having to cost us a race start and restart, but we'll have to see how things go now. Unicorn, take us away.
Oh, there we go. We've got 4 or 5 red lights here on in Monza. The engines are revving its lights out, and away we go here. Dason getting a decent start ahead of Jake. Crampy not too bad, but it's Yagsol. He's put onto the line. Jake, they're going to give it squirrely. He loses not 1 but 2 positions as Crampy comes through. And Azir, he's up 3 places already as they charge out into Tower, but he's gone way too late on the brakes. Hits Dason in the rear. There is a sector 1 yellow flag, and I'm not surprised there are a few cars off on the outside of turn 2. Both the Williams, Vincent, and Jake all caught up. Outside of turn 2, Yoda's just pulled off. I do not know what we are witnessing here. There are definitely problems here for a few cars. I don't know whether that's driver error or that is because of desync. But one thing, one driver who will be happy, Sindaku on his home race trip, leading up 9 places as well. We've got Alex Bisto cutting the corner at the chicane there to get through. He's up into 3rd place, up 10 places, and well, what a crazy start to this race. Everyone, though, miraculously still going and in some sort of a train.
That was a very difficult race start to find yourself in, and you can see some of these drivers have lost a multitude of positions as Crampy looking at the rear of Yoda. This has been a very shaky race start given these conditions, and we knew it was going to be hard, but we didn't think that we'd be seeing the pole sitter drop all the way to the rear of this grid, that's for certain.
Yeah, absolutely, and it might be the case he's got the wrong setup, and also he did get tapped in the rear, of course, coming into turn 1, and that never helps. But Sindaku right now, you know, with Yagsol starting to tear away Alex, but dropping off a little bit here. He's struggling in these conditions, and Kai up the inside of the curve at Alboreto. Can he find something here to take the final point in position? Alex Bitter, though, on the outside, really finding some traction on 137.3, the fastest of the race so far, of course. But here comes Kai charging down the start finish straight on Alex Bitter. He wants to get through into these podium positions. Alex later on the brakes, so in that McLaren, a little bit of a lockup, but just about gets it turned in inside for turn 1. Brilliant move there to hold on. Then there's the 2 Aston Martins behind them. Psycho, Vincent Nyquist going wheel to wheel, coming out of turn 2, and they just about keep it clean, and it's the Ferrari still ahead there in 7th. He's down 1 place from where he started, but given how everyone else's race starts going, I think I'll be content with that, to say the least.
Ditto Kai, Dougie Falcons in formation right now. You can see the position changes have been monumental on this grid. The timing tower is going to be playing a little bit of a decent game with us for some time, as has been the case all week long. This is our 5th Italian Grand Prix this week, and it will be our 5th lobby encountering some element of desync given the latest patch.
Yeah, and obviously we hope that those sort of issues do get ironed out by Codemasters, of course, but we just have to deal with it as it comes, because obviously we don't have any influence there over those sort of things. Timing tower still not providing us any gaps, but there are still very, very close sites. Let's see if Kai goes for another move up the inside of the curve for Alboreto. He will. As Bitso goes wide again, he did find great traction on the outside, almost coming together. That I think there was actually a slight bit of contact. Does this open up Kai to Dougie Falcons? I don't think it will. At least not yet. Maybe into turn 1 it will.
There goes Yags looking at Sindaku. A drag race into turn 1. Sindaku gets on the brakes, and Yags says, I am not going to tempt fate there.
Oh,
Daniel
Kai,
Monaf has Kai just right in front of him. You can see Kai sliding through turn 1.
Well, I don't know if we're seeing different things, Jeff, because Kai on my screen cut turn 1. Pretty much
Yeah,
completely.
he went through.
So...
Yeah, he went through and I think he locked up there. He dropped back. He's in 5th position now. Vincent Nyquist, huge lunge here, looking for 2. Kai gets off track, and that is not how you get it done in the Ferrari.
Yeah, he hasn't gained any positions. He has given a rival though a penalty, and well, it's a bit unfair for Kai, who will not be happy that he's had to pick up a penalty for that, but he has gone off track, of course, and hasn't taken the escape road in any fashion. This middle train, though, Jeff, is still very much in full swing, and the 2 leaders 3.6 seconds clear now of it. They are absolutely flying at the top. And for Sindalco, he has 9 places up from where he started. Yagsol up 2, so not as dramatic of a race start, but he might be up 3 if he has a look up the inside here. He doesn't, but he is putting a lot of pressure on that Haas here as we come through, as we're about to start lap 4, and the Red Bull hot on the Haas's tail.
Vincent, Daniel right now so tight here as Sindalco and Yags continue their drag race. We're going to jump back to them as there's nothing doing just yet coming out between Vincent and Daniel. Yags looking for that inside lockups. It's so hard to get the car broken down for that first turn here coming out of 330K. It's just so fast into that first turn. No grip.
Yeah, everyone, you know, there's been a lot of overtaking here this week. They're struggling here in these conditions. Obviously, Vincent Nyquist, he's looking again into the De La Rochière chicane. This time, it looks like he's done it a little bit more successfully. There's a bit of a tap, though, as Daniel Manaf tries to get through into the corner. And what a switchback this could be if he can find the traction here on the exit. Vincent trying to squeeze into the inside. Daniel Manaf not having any of it as they go side by side through the first Lesmos here. Still side by side as they exit. Vincent just edging ahead. But Daniel Manaf still very much along. Gives him the squeeze. And Daniel Manaf is through into 6. He will not be, taking any of that scare tactics that Vincent was trying to do. Put him off. Adesi, no common exchange for the final points position. No, he's up 1 place.
Oh, that was a little bit late there from Angel. He went for a look to the inside. He did not have enough grip, and he went into the rear of Noel Carlman there. That was a day late and $1 short, and that is not going to be how you push through into Ascari.
Again, Aziz picked up a 10-second penalty for that as well, so the AlphaTauris not going to be having any good words exchanged between them at the end of the things. Dougie Falcons, meanwhile, he is finally going to get past Alex Visser. Alex has struggled since the get-go, but has managed to keep the Aston Martin at bay, and he might do so again here. He's later on the brakes. But Dougie Falcon's really trying his best to squeeze through. There's still side by side a bit of a banging of wheels there as they come through. And Alex again on exit, finding the traction he needs. Dougie Falcons gets a little bit squirrely and has brought Kai really into this car. This is Nyquist 5 seconds for corner cutting further down the grid. But as these 3 come down into the De La Rochière chicane, there isn't going to be any exchanging between them. But my goodness, it's such a battle going on P3 right now. And in these conditions, it's incredible to see that Jake on the rear of Psycho. Can he find anything here? As he goes slightly into the rear of the Mercedes. And is looking forward on the exit of the first Lesmos.
They're all in the rear of Vincent here. Vincent, look at the gap that's dropping between him and Daniel Monaf since that exchange the two of them had. And you can see right now Jake's getting annoyed with this because Psycho has not really been able to push through on Vincent. And Jake wants to get back to where he started this race. Ooh, you can see there's a slight tap coming from Jake on the rear of Psycho. He gets loose. He's still struggling to get through Ascari, and here comes Jake under fire from the McLaren. Adesi pushing through. That's Noel Carlman as well.
And there's a yellow flag popping up. It looks like it's Dyson. He's spun it. Championship leader is around coming out of Ascari. He won't be happy with himself. But my, oh my, this race has been absolutely incredible so far as Battle for Third continues. There's a little bit of exchange here as Dougie Falcons tries to lunge on the outside of Alex Bidet, but he won't find it there as Arias sets the fastest lap of the race. Noel Coleman, Adesi, they're going back wheel to wheel here. This time it's turn 1 and turn 2. The Retafilio chicane, and it's Noel Coleman on exit of turn 2. Beautiful move there from the Mercedes driver. He will be very happy with that one and re-establishes himself into the points. Obviously, both Mercedes started outside of them, but both have found their way in, taking advantage of that first lap mistake from a fair few of the drivers here, as still have will-to-will action, and given that it's a wet race shift, obviously we can't see what the forecast is.
Crampy on the exit, out of Della Roggia into the first Lesmo, getting a move on a Desi with the switchback coming through on the inside into the second Lesmo. What a beautiful switchback, planting it on the inside of that apex, really giving Crampy the bye-bye. And that was a very good move there from a Desi to kind of just hold station in that 11th position. This battle, though, can cost them.
Yeah, it's a really awesome battle to watch, but you don't want to be, like you say, costing yourself times, because the points are where it matters, and that's the top 10. Fighting for 11th at this stage isn't always as smart as Alex Biddo. Defending late on the brakes, and it's a bit too late, and Dougie Falcons, a brilliant move there to just force the mistake for the McLaren, who he's seen struggle lap after lap here from the start of the race. And now, well, the Aston Martin takes third, and he brings Kai with him, and Alex Biddo drops 2 places. Does he drop a third here to the other Aston Martin, Nathaniel Manafti? He won't. That is done 1, but he has been struggling. The Spaniard really not getting to grips right now with the rain in that McLaren. He is doing well to hold on to the positions that he did gain on an opening lap, but he and Daniel Manafti both up 8 places. We'll see what the Aston Martin can do. As Jason, but he's having spins, he's having problems, but he is setting fast laps of the race. A 1:30.9 coming out of the Williams.
What a race this has been in these conditions today. Psycho and Jake now. Jake is going to have the inside back through. Psycho trying to hold it. Got a yellow flag. That is, I think, Mr. Angel Arias.
Yeah, as this train starts to break in 2, you can see sort of Vincent in no man's land. He's not really got a car in front of him or behind him, and that's sort of the break. Well, he might have a car in front of his Alex Biddo goes off at the sky. He's still pointing in the right direction, but he does lose the position to Daniel Manaf, and then snakes out, coming out of the corner, and that loses him the position to Vincent, who I think he would have lost it to anyway. And he's going to get caught by this second train now. He's really struggling, has been since the start of the race, and it's unfortunate to see for the Spaniards, but he did have a brilliant opening lap, but now he's falling, and his position actually gives back Vincent where he started. Vincent now the only person on this grid shift in their starting position. We haven't seen pit stops yet, and he's back into 6th place where he started this race, but everyone else has gone up or down, and most of them, a pretty drastic change.
Biddo with a big issue into turn 1. This could really hurt him, as not only has it given him a 3-second time penalty, but it's going to give Psycho an opportunity to potentially get on the power and get that position on track. Jake with a big issue on the exit out of turn 2. Not going to be here to follow through at Psycho. You can see Psycho getting it along the inside. Biddo, he's struggled again, and he has to really compromise his exit, and he loses his position here. Jake, right on the rear of this, is going to be looking to inherit from the McLaren massively, and you can just see Alex Biddo has come undone massively since that mistake that saw him lose out to Dougie Falcons. Now he's had a big snap. He's lost not 1 but 2 positions. Noel Carlman is moving through, and now his teammate is going to breeze by him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we heard it at Spa, where it was his first league race when he reserved, I can't remember which grid it was now. It might have been Tier 2 grid, but he said he hadn't had much time in the game, and it was his first league race. He obviously hasn't had much time in the race because he doesn't seem comfortable in it at all, and he's really struggling. He had such a great race start, and now just falling further and further through the grid. He will not be happy with how this is going. His Crampy's looking at him here. He's someone else who's fallen through the grid, but that was obviously very, very early on, as there's a problem for Azir again. It would seem a yellow flag coming out of the second Lesmos. The car looked intact though.
This rain, one thing to know, it has not let up. And with that, I don't know what tires we're going to see here, as a Desi and Noel Carlman are having an exchange. A Desi, I did not see the move coming. I don't think Noel did either. A Desi just said hello and goodbye to Noel very, very quickly there. That was a beautiful move from the McLaren.
Yeah, really took advantage. Noel just a little late on the brakes, I think, into turn 1, really. Just went a bit too deep. Yoda into the pit lane. He is way down in 16th place, and well, there's the retirement in the pit lane. And well, after last week's high, it seems that this week is a definite low for the season of the Alpine driver. Things starting to calm down just a little bit here as we sort of settle into the race. Lap 9 at 27, a third of the way through. And I don't think it will be too long until we start seeing pit stops. It might be a one stop, depending on if intermediates start to become a part of the plan. At some points, the track, it doesn't look like it's raining as hot, but there is still standing water. But obviously a dry line is forming.
Crampy, Bitto fighting.
And, well, we've got Psycho coming into the pit lane here. See what his plan is. Fresh to the wet and a wing change for the Mercedes as Crampy and Bitto still go side by side. This time through the Rettifilio chicane. And we have seen Bitto get great traction out of here on the outside, and he gets it again. Crampy actually a little bit wobbly coming out of the second corner as he comes now through the Curva Grande, looking to hunt down Alex Bitto here for P1. Doesn't find it though, so Spaniard's safe right now, still in the points just by a very small margin. As Crampy, I think, would have got him an exit there had Bitto been a bit further ahead, but Bitto right where Crampy didn't need him, and Williams actually tapped the rear with the McLaren there.
Lando here, just watching along with the Alfa Romeo, kind of trying to get himself involved in this fight. A little bit too close to Crampy coming through that first Lesmo. He had to get on the brakes hard, lock the wheels, and it really almost cost him maybe even a spin. You can see he almost lost out a second to these drivers ahead coming into this Ascari. Crampy and Bitto with this fighting, of course, is going to give him an opportunity to catch up, as Crampy has not been able to dispatch this McLaren just yet. Bitto holding on to that final points-paying position. Crampy having started this race in a very good position compared to where he is now, wanting to get through, as Yags will be into the pit lane for intermediate compound tires.
That's a bold call. Very, very bold call from the Red Bull. We'll see how he fares on that compound. I do not know if it's time. I wouldn't expect it so. There is a dry line though, so maybe that's his thinking here. But that's a very bold call as there's a problem for a Mercedes. Psycho's missing his entire front wing right after he just came in for a new one.
That is a full safety car. I don't know what caused it. It might
Must have
very
been
well have
Psycho's
been
front wing.
Psycho, but that is a full safety car.
I can think of nothing else here. And now, well, the drivers have a choice shift. They're going to come into the pit lane, that's for sure. But do you follow Yag's fault? Do you go for the intermediate tires? Or do you stick with the wets? I feel like you have to really come in to the pit lane. I'm having a look on board with the Red Bull now, seeing whether he's sliding around. Obviously, the speed heavily reduced now that we're under the safety car. And he won't really have got a feel for it either, but he will feel under his foot, you know, how much is the car sliding on those intermediates. It doesn't look too bad for him right now. He doesn't seem to be having many issues, but he is being very careful on throttle application. But, you know, as you should be. So maybe it is time for intermediate. Psycho is in. They've both gone for it too. Let's see what Sindarko goes for, because surely he comes in too here. And I wouldn't be surprised if he went for the green wall tires too. He is into the pit lane. And I think there might be a few penalties served here as well for the likes of Dougie, Vincent, maybe Alex Bitto as well.
I think you're okay with that. I think you're okay with that when you serve these penalties. Safety car, you know, you have a little bit of a gap. You're going to lose a little bit of position. But serving that penalty, I'm always someone that wants to finish the race with as little penalties as possible. And because you never know what can happen in the end of the race. You and I have spoken many a time about late safety cars. We're just about that halfway point here right now for this one. But if we were to get another one, knock wood, near the end of the race and you're holding on to a 5-second time penalty, how hard is it to build a gap in wet conditions? Pretty hard. So get it served and you're going to be better off.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a couple of people staying out here. And obviously, Crampy, Daniel Manaf, both of their teammates came in and, well, I think they're just, you know, trying to avoid that. And Daniel Manaf, obviously, Dougie Falcons had to serve his 5 seconds, and he's now penalty free as well. Interestingly enough, Striff, Kai there, 5th place, he's got 6 seconds of penalties. He's gone for a fresh set of wets. So he doesn't believe it's intermediate time. Everyone else does, and, well, I don't think Crampy and Daniel here think that it is still time for the wets. Maybe they think they can go for a few more laps, but I think they'll be coming in for Inters sooner rather than later here. They just didn't want to get double stacked. But it is a very, very bold call from the Alfa Romeo to go onto a fresh set of wets, because if it is going to become intermediate conditions, and it does look like maybe it's starting to dry up just a little bit, but I think that's just the dry line. There is definitely still standing water on the outside. And with that, I wonder whether we'll see a few people try and go for overtakes on these intermediate tyres, and they just won't perform the way the drivers expect. I think there might be a few drivers caught out here by the tyres. They might be, just about usable here on the dry line, but off of the line, they might be, very, very tricky to use. Now, do Daniel Manaf and Crampy come in here to the pit lane? Daniel Manaf will be. Crampy is not. So Crampy staying out, and Daniel Manaf, well, there's a penalty. He's picked up 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane. That is not what you want to do, especially under safety car. So avoidable. And he's going for another set of wets as well. As we just sit back and wait for the safety car obviously to end. We might go around, or we might go green at the end of the next lap. It depends. I think Cyclone is here. It'll take a little while to catch up, but if they can really blast it down that start finish straight, then they might just be able to get their way to the rear end of this grid. And obviously we've got Alex Bello, Arias Dason, and Daniel Manaf yet to catch up as well, but they definitely will catch up before we need to. And well, safety car shift has been brought in very, very late in the past here in the current game, and we'll see whether that happens again tonight.
Alrighty, here we go.
There might be time here for Cyclone is here to catch up as they come through the De La Roche chicane. The other drivers, the front of the grid, have just made it to Ascari here. But I wonder whether the safety car will get called in. It has to get called in very late, like I mentioned. If that's the case, it could come in right now, but as we come through the curve at Alboreto, it is a super late call, and we're wondering why that is even in the game, but it doesn't look like that will be the case. It looks like we will be going around one more time under the full course portion.
Kai's coming in here. And I think that he's gonna... Oh, well... Okay. Mr. Bitto came in, he took a penalty there, but usually, as you say...
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that under the safety car, of course. And what has happened there? Sindarko, at least on my screen shift, kind of went into the safety car. But when I say into, I don't mean he drove into it. I mean, he was physically inside of the safety car and sort of bounced out. I'm not quite sure what's happened there to the Italian, but he has dropped off at the 7th place. He was leading things, and that caught me very much by surprise. I wasn't expecting that to happen, and I don't really know what I've witnessed.
Well, one thing I can say for certain, I just want to say thank you to everybody who is viewing along with us in the stream tonight, and a big shout out and thanks to the drivers participating, and to you, Unicorn, for joining me for this race tonight. It's unfortunate when bugs come through and issues like this arise, but we can only do so much with the cards that were dealt, my friends, and so here we are playing a good old game of whatever game we're playing. Safety car is coming in this lap, and we're on lap 14, soon to be green flag on 15. If I had my way, I would kibosh the patch and roll it back, but what do I know? I only race and commentate 6 of these a week. What do we know, Unicorn?
Yeah, absolutely. We, pretty much amateurs when it comes to this game.
We've
but
never run a league race before, ever.
No, we wouldn't know how. But someone who hopefully does know how is Yaxiel on how to restart a safety car, because he has hammered down at the start of things, and he hasn't really got the best of launches because Dougie Falcons is right there with him, pushing with the battery. Arias is pulled in the pit lane, it seemed, but back to the front of things, side by side into turn 1, 4 leader things, and Jake just into the rear of the Red Bull. He is not going to be popular with Yaxiel, who takes 5 seconds for corner cutting as he rejoins the track, and Jake is going to come through on the inside of the Curva Grande as well. Yaxiel will not be happy. Behind them, there's still a bit of a tussle going on as Yaxiel going to go late on the brakes into the De La Rocha chicane. He's not, but there is side by side between Vincent and a Desi. Vincent going to give it skew with, and Sindarko, well, he doesn't mind. Well, he will mind very much so that he got that problem that set him down, but he's already up 2 places on this safety car restart. He's looking to make it 3 here on the rear of a Desi. He can't find a way through into the second Lesmos here as he almost, spins around, drifts the car through Lesmos too. And well, a great save for the Hassers. Crampy gets past Psycho, and so does Dason as well. Is there been another problem for the Mercedes, who sparked the safety car by losing his entire front wing? But it looks like his car's intact, but a very, very good race restart. And well, Jake and Sindarko, the 2 Haas drivers, 2nd and 5th right now. Great race from those 2. I'll be very, very happy with how this is going. Well, it could be going even better. It could be a 1-3 if Sindarko was still up in front of things.
What a race restart for Dougie Falcons, who's going to be very thrilled about the fact that he got rid of a penalty earlier on and he managed to take lead of this race. Desi in 4th position. Man, has it been a good launch for him. 11 positions is where he finds himself up from where he began. Everything.
Crampy, he's just slotted himself behind Dason. I don't know whether there's team orders there in place, Jeff, but
I wouldn't be surprised. Dason seemed to have a ton of pace on the rear of Crampy that we haven't seen in this race just yet because of all of the commotion that unfolded in that first turn. Azir right now wheel to wheel with Lando's Milkman. Fronts to rears for Azir, and this really exposes him to not only Dason. Dason right now trying to leave the door open for Crampy.
Great move though from Dason, to just sneak through there on the exit of the De La Rocha chicane. And Azir has a problem out of the Lesmos, and well, Crampy's trying to get by here. And AlphaTauri really struggling to find some grip here, and this is the problem of racing in the wet. We are on the interslow, so things are going to get a little bit faster. But, if there is still wet patches, like I was mentioning, on the off track, just off the line there, you can see the puddles still forming where the races aren't constantly big. That could be a little bit more slippery, and I think that's what we're seeing there with that sort of shake you get from some of the cars if they're side by side out of the corners. The traction zone's on the outside or off the line.
Kai, Psycho. Kai on the inside of the Parabolica of the Curve Alboreto. He had a great launch as... Look at Psycho. He got exposed and he got all out of shape on the rear of that Williams, and now Kai still hasn't been able to pass him. Daniel Monaf's here as Dason and Lando's Milkman. We're going to jump to this really quick. Wheel to wheel into the turn just behind them. Nothing doing just yet between Kai and Psycho. Dason wanted to get through this field. He started this race on pole. He wants to get back to a potential podium after that very unfortunate turn 1. Sindarko looking at a Desi for 4th. Big space left there for, of course, the Haas from the McLaren, and there's a little bit of wheel rubbing, a little bit of a contact between the pair, but man, have things ever come tight on this safety car restart. We're on lap 17 out of 27.
Yeah, there's still plenty of time left in this race, 10 laps, and it's going to be a shorter 10 laps than the first 10 laps, like I mentioned, with the intermediate tyres. And we'll just see who's got the better pace here, because again, the different tyre, it's a different driving style. Not, totally, but it will feel different, and that might mean that some people, maybe their wet setup is more attuned to the intermediate conditions rather than the wet conditions. Again, it'll be a very slight, improvement over what they had previously, but these things do matter as Kai and Psycho exchange. Again, it's actually Psycho off, coming out of a sky just wide, not in the wall, but he lets through Daniel Manaf as well, so really struggling here at this stage of the race. Dougie Falcon starting to pull a bit of a gap here as he sets fastest up of the race at 129.3, and Jake is using a lot of battery as well. Dougie 60%, Jake 26%, so he is doing that on raw pace alone, and he is really tearing away with leader things right now. And he's in P3 in these standings, so he'll be very, very happy if he can pick up the 25 points at the end of this one.
No doubt. 25 points, a major boost, not only to your points, but to your confidence. We have a migration of host right now, and that is not what you want to see at this stage of a race at all.
Yeah, fingers crossed that this doesn't have a problem. But there goes Alex Bitter, who was the host of the lobby. So hopefully not too much of a problem as Crampy's on the inside coming through the first Lesmos of Orlando's Milkman. And he does find his way through the Williams, really liking that first Lesmos. So very, very nice there. But Lando's Milkman now under pressure as the two Alfa Romeos go side by side down into a Sky. Is anyone going to let off? Kai is going to back out a little bit on his teammate as Daniel Manaf picks up a 3-second time penalty. He's just behind them here in the Aston Martin.
Everyone wanting as much position as they can. There's some penalties playing a role here. 13 seconds for Azir. Lando, of course, is here in a reserve capacity tonight. Based on Vincent Nyquist, this is sure to be a move here from the Williams. DRS battery and utilization. The other Williams behind, dispatching Azir.
Yeah, a huge run of speed there from Dason to get that move done into P7. Just brilliant stuff from him. And, you know, in these conditions, it does seem to be drying up a little bit more as well. I don't think it will dry up in time for slicks before the end of the race. But it is possible puddles starting to sort of disappear now as Sindarko on the inside of De La Roche chicane. He did restart this race in 7th after the safety car had a problem with him. But he's now back up to 4th as Azir and Crampy go wheel to wheel coming out of the De La Roche chicane. And Azir getting 9th and holding on to it with his dear hands here as Crampy has to jump back to the final points position. But no penalty so far for the young Brit. But Azir, well, he's got that black and white flag next to his name. So he might lose that at the end of things, with additional time added to his race.
Just rectifying myself here. Mr. Lando's Milkman is now a full-time driver.
Things starting to calm down a little bit again after the safety car restart. Broken up more so this time than we saw in the full wet conditions. No one huge train. There's just a few pockets of drivers here and there. Some of them larger than others. Here goes Yagsor. He's got a great run here on Jake for P2 down into the first turn. And Jake later on the brakes and turns in just a little early. Almost brought around the front of Yagsor there. But is it to be? The Red Bull still pointing in the right direction. And here he goes again. Well, coming out of the Cover Grande down towards the De La Roche again. And he's got so much speed. Jake, though, again, later on the brakes. Jacopo cutting the first corner of the De La Roche again. Turn 4 there. Just to get through. Doesn't find the switchback, though, which I thought he might look for there, having cut the corner. But being very respectful. But he won't be happy that he's not able to find a way past Jake now, who's dropping back on Dougie. 1.6 seconds gap to leader right now. And Dougie Falcons, well, he's been on the podium twice. Hasn't won a race yet this season. Well, there's only been 2 race winners so far. And that would be Mr. Sindarko and obviously Dason with 3 wins.
Yags now pushing out of Scari now, once again. Making his intentions in that inside known as Crampy and Azir exchange. Crampy on the exit of Ascari. Pushing away from the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, so this has to be the move for the Red Bull. He's got so much more speed coming out of the Curva Alvaretto, and he does find P2 here. Jake dropping back to 3rd. And the Red Bull in front as Jake taps him in the rear there a little bit. And, well, again, Yagsol seems to have fed with that very, very nicely and keeps himself in this race and fighting for that P2. But there is, of course, 10 seconds of penalties for the Red Bull. So it might be a little bit fruitless at the end of the day.
Jason on the rear of Noel right now, less than 2 tenths between them.
It's tight here, the final few laps of the race.
It's all come down to this. We're in 21 out of 27. It's been wet driving the entire race, and I asked these guys yesterday outside of the Americas Tier 1 division. They had a wet race the whole time on slicks. I said, how did that feel? They said, I don't want to ever do that again.
Like we said at the start, it's so difficult when there's those conditions. At least here, the drivers do have, they know it's intermediate conditions. They've done this before as Kai slips past Azir here on the run down to the curve at Alboreta. So I wonder there whether there was an issue for the Avatari coming out of a Sky that caused the lack of speed there that allowed Kai seemingly so easily through. And he's got a ERS advantage as Crampy sets fastest straight lap of the race. Those two Williams, they're looking to charge soon as well. They've been unleashed a little bit. Azir, he's going to look to get back past the Alfa Romeo. It's Alpha versus Alpha, but it is the Romeo squad that comes out on top as Azir. Well, that's a very harsh penalty there. Really didn't look like he stepped over the line, but apparently he did through turn one. But he's going to have a look on the inside of the Curva Grande. Kai realizes, gives him the space on the inside, and it's still wheel to wheel for the two Italian constructors here. But Azir later on the brakes, the Spaniard swoops around the outside of the Della Rosia chicane. And a brilliant move there. And the AlphaTauri swoops in and takes that final point away from the Alfa Romeo. But he will lose that on penalties. And I think they'll both lose the position on penalties. And Lando's Milkman right now set to inherit that final point.
Dayson, Noel, you have that penalty for Dayson. You never know what can happen with penalties following a race. Given the stewards, they look at everything, and if someone contests a penalty, they may be able to get it removed. So you always want to do your best to fight, whether you have penalties or not, in any situation, and just treat it as if that driver is as clean as you are. Azir and Kai now drag racing into the Curve Alboreto. You can see Kai now on the inside, wanting that position back from the Spaniard. Azir holding on the outside with a good exit. Still wheel to wheel between these two, and you can see Kai just ahead by a touch right now in that Alfa Romeo on the inside, pushing.
Oh, Dayson. Oh, I'm surprised he kept that out of without hitting anyone. He's having to take the slalom course at the Butterfield chicane shift super late on the brakes, locked up and nearly ran into the rear of, I believe, Vincent, if not Noel. And the championship leader loses even more points when he'd actually redeemed a few from the race start, but now drops back behind his teammate. As we are in very, very late stages, lap 23 and 27. Not long to go now for these drivers. They've had such a tough campaign here in Monza. The changeable conditions from wets to inters, and it doesn't look like there's any sign of the rain letting up anytime soon. And obviously now, I don't think we'd ever see a slick compound of tyre as Kai picks up 3 seconds. That's not going to help him stay ahead of his teammate by the end of the race.
Crampy half a second on the rear Vincent. No penalties in it between these two, and Crampy, the Williams team, well, they got a win with him yesterday. They might just get him some points today with him in reserve. Dayson had pole position. Crampy was up there with him, and things were very intense between the Williams on that opening lap. I imagine there's going to be some angry discussion between them later on.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be stewards having a look at that. There was at least 4 cars involved in that turn 1 tangle, and well, it all sort of culminated in lots of cars in the gravel out of turn 2. So we'll see what comes of that. Who maybe is at fault, or whether it was just multiple mistakes murdered into one. And speaking of mistakes, Kai's completely lost it coming out of the Della Rosia chicane strip, and he's just swung around, spun, and slid down the straight towards the first Lesmo. And, well, he sort of slid slowly into the wall. Keeps his car running, and, well, he's not out of this race, and he's not got any damage, but I don't see him finishing any higher than 14th now, unless there's a huge penalty haul ahead of him, and not really. He's on the second or the third highest of anyone, but the Exol, well, his 10 seconds isn't going to help Kai here.
small battles unfolding. Vincent within 1 second of Noel, just the same as Crampy, and you love to see it here where there's this small three-way fight for points. 6th position potentially up for grabs right now. Penalties: 10 seconds for Yags, 3 seconds for Dason. We have 16 seconds on board with Azir, 3 for Daniel Monaf, 6 for Psycho, and 9 for Kai.
Yeah, and that 10-second XL penalty as Kai out of the session retires it in the pit lane. It's going to potentially give Haas a double finish on the podium and Sindako a home race podium. So I'm sure he'll be happy with that. It wasn't quite the win he's looking for, but his second trip to the podium, I'm sure he'd be happy with that if he does get it done here in the last few laps. And at home, in the wet weather, it could have been a first place had that safety car problem not arisen for the Haas, but obviously able to fight back from 7th, potentially to 3rd, maybe even higher if he can catch his teammate here, who's on a lot less battery actually than the Italian. So there is potential for a late move maybe for Sindako here, but we'll just have to wait and see. And obviously he does have to stay within 10 seconds of Yagsor, so he can't afford a mistake here of any kind. Here we go down into turn 1 for Crampy, unable to find a way past Vincent, but still fighting down for these points. And they're not actually that low, because even these guys potentially will see themselves promoted because of Yag's penalty, depending on, if Yags has a mistake or slows down a little bit. But obviously, if they're fighting down here, they might not, but it is going to be close with who gets promoted. There's 3 seconds between Yags and Yags. I think Yags knows he just has to push to a bit of damage limitation here. Doesn't want to fight with Ducky, but just work with him, slipstream him a little bit, and just try and jug him away from the field. Dougie Falcon's very comfortable right now in lead of things. It has been since that safety car restart. Great job from the Aston Martin to have led this in the fashion that he has. As there's a yellow flag as he is out. What has happened? The Alpha Tauri coming out of second left just slammed into the right-hand side wall, and that is the first terminal retirement strip, if I'm not mistaken, in this entire race. The only safety car we had because of a broken front wing, and we're not going to see one now as Daniel Manaf spins out coming out of Ascari, and he hasn't retired. It was Azir leaving the session, but he has lost his entire front wing.
That is extremely unfortunate to find yourself in that kind of position at the finish of a race. We're on lap 26 out of 20. We're on lap 27, as it took a second to update properly. Final lap of this race, Yags within half a second of Dougie. You've got Crampy on the rear, Vincent quite tight with Sindako within that 1 second range you mentioned on Jake.
Yeah, he's super close there. He has burnt off his ERS advantage though. They're now pretty much identical in that factor, and he doesn't want to do anything silly here to cost him and his teammate the podiums. He just has to settle, I think, for 3rd place, and that is still nothing, be disappointed about 3rd with the race he's had. Obviously, he will be disappointed that it's not the win that looked so on for him here on his home turf, but the safety car having some sort of glitch with him is unfortunate. But right now, it looks like the man who will take the 25 points will be Dougie Falcons. Just 1 corner to go for him. And he's got Yagsol right there behind him, but it won't matter because he has 10 seconds of time penalties. It's Dason with the fastest lap unless it gets beaten here. But it is Dougie Falcons coming home. It's his 3rd podium of the season, his 1st win. Jake goes P2, his teammate Sindako 3rd in his home race. Adesi comes home in 4th place. And what a race it's been from him. 11 places gained. Noel Carman 7 places to get into 5th, 7 places to Sindako and Dougie as well. Yagswell, he finishes 6th with that 10-second time, demoting him from 2nd. He only falls to 6th, though it could have been much worse. Vincent just 4/10 off of that gap. He finishes 7th, 1 down from where he started. Dason and Crampy, the 2 Williams, They dominated qualifying 1 and 3, but they finished 8th and 9th. And well, like I say, Jason does bring home that extra point for fastest lap. And it was by quite some margin too, a 4/10 window, I believe, over the closest rival. And then Lando's Milkman, he picked up a important point for his championship here, his constructors home race. 10th place for him, 6 places up from where he started. Psycho finishes 11th, not a bad finish considering he had problems in this race. Spun, lost his front wing at one point, caused our only safety car. And I missed the one other finisher that we had. I believe it was one of the other Tauris there, if not Daniel Manaf in the Aston Martin. Would have been one of them. I think didn't quite get the chance to win it. We'll see it in just a moment. But the podium celebrations for the Aston Martin there, of course, of Dougie Falcons. What a performance it was from him. 8th on the grid to win the race. The safety car restart went his way. It looked like he might lose it to turn 1. Didn't quite manage to hold on to it, and then built a brilliant gap. The 2 Haas drivers as well. They'll be happy with that. Jake second to second, able to score points at possibly his best track, and then Sindaco as well, 10th to 3rd at his home Grand Prix. What could have been for the Italian Haas driver, but of course, well, you have to take what you could take with the game, and like you said earlier, just the instabilities that the new update seems to have brought on it. It was Daniel Manaf, our final finisher there, in 12th place. Azir also qualified with +2 laps to his name, but he did DNF very, very late on in the other tie. Then Kai, Arias, Alex Bido, and Yoda are other retirees there, all in the pits. Azir, the only person to DNF on track with terminal damage, and well, he actually got classified. So everyone else in the pit lane, and what a race that was.
It really was a fantastic race. It's really an amazing time to see wet running in Italy. I remember seeing Tier 2 many seasons ago in Season 2. Feels like forever ago, but we got to see some amazing wet running in Italy. I remember Remco van Putten notably going to move around the outside of Extreme in the Curva Grande. He was in the Toro Rosso at the time, and that was just a lot of fun to kind of get a bit of a nostalgic trip, at least for me, in the wet conditions, the wet running, a lot of intensity. That turn 1, very, very interesting to kind of see what happened there. We'll have to look at it later. I'm sure the stewards, as I'm sure many of the people in the chat have mentioned already, are going to be having a busy one after that, maybe. It's been a busy week for the stewarding office and the MRL, given some of the stuff that we've seen come through Italy. But, of course, with that now, we are going to be getting some interviews dialed in with our podium finishers. Now, we are going to start with, it will be our 3rd position finisher this evening. It is one of 2 Haas drivers joining us this evening, Mr. Sindaco. How are you feeling? It was the home Grand Prix today. We spoke to you about what this might mean to you. You said you don't really approach these differently. It's just another race. Well, P3, tell me that hits a little bit differently.
Well, apart from the start, that was like unbelievable. I went from P10 to P1 in 2 corners, but basically this game screwed me once again, because I was leading under the safety car, then the safety car lagged backwards, and the safety car just sent me into the basically just almost flipped my car over. I ended up into the runway of turn 2, and when I rejoined, I was like P6.
Yeah.
So I lost the race. I don't know if you saw it on live, but I'll post the clip later. But it was unbelievable.
I don't believe I had it on my side. I think Unicorn may have had it on his end.
Yeah, I managed to recover up to P3. We'll see what happened with the penalty of the Red Bull, but I don't know yet. And yeah, apart from that, I drove a very good race. I was so satisfied with how I was driving, because I didn't do a single wet lap on this track, so I was basically discovering the track lap by lap. Especially in the first laps, I was struggling so much. Then I was getting the pace, and when the safety car came out, I was clear ahead. I was just driving ahead. I wasn't going to pit when the Red Bull did, but yeah, the safety car basically saved him, actually, because he would have lost so much time on the inters. It was way too early. But it's okay. Managed to get a podium anyway.
Yeah,
I'm happy with that.
It was a great podium, all things said and considered. When you think about how your race went, that issue with the safety car, the wet conditions, having done no wet running, coming through the podium, it's a great result. Now we are coming into a week break ahead of a very iconic circuit in Suzuka as well. You and your teammate today both collecting a podium. What does this mean to you moving ahead for round 6?
Yeah, it's very important for us to get some points because we didn't manage to get many up until now. So hopefully we'll keep this going, and up from Suzuka onwards, we're going to put the Hasses a bit forward on the grid because we had like 27, 28 points up until now. So I hope to do better from now on and fight for the podium on a regular base.
Well, thank you, Sindako, for taking the time to interview, and we hope to see you fighting for those podiums on a regular basis as well. Congratulations on the P3, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time, potentially, for Suzuka.
Yeah. See you next.
Oh, I kind of cut him off there. That's my fault. There we have now Jake in the other Haas. We just spoke to Sindako, now joining us, second position in Italy. It is Jake, the Swede. And just before we jump in here, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, this is your best circuit, right? We've talked about this before. You've done so much running here. It's such an intense circuit for you. The wet running might have thrown you a curveball, but you still came through on the podium. How are you feeling after that crazy race?
Oh yeah, I'm feeling amazing. This is definitely one of my best tracks, and yeah, it was fun with the condition change in quali and race. Definitely put a lot more work into the setup and knowing what you should do and what you should not do.
Definitely.
It was a great drive.
Definitely a curveball for the entirety of the grid. Would you say that you were a driver better prepared for these conditions, considering the amount of running you've done in Italy past, or would you say it was as much of a surprise to you today as it was for the rest of the grid?
I think it was as much of a surprise to me as to the other drivers. I didn't do probably as much practice compared to the other drivers for this race. I just have the knowledge of the previous game, and I know how to drive the track.
We had a very good onboard with you through this race, of course, and you were running in good position for a good chunk of the race. What did it mean when you crossed that line, take second place, and not only to have second place, but to have Sindako there right with you to collect a serious points haul for the team?
Oh yeah, it was an amazing feeling, a very amazing feeling. I was so excited and happy about it.
Unicorn, any questions for Jake heading into now a week break after that very wet race?
Yeah, I mean, Jake, obviously, congratulations. I think you're one of the few people who finished where they started in this race. But turn 1, correct me if I'm wrong, on lap 1, you were a little bit involved with the sort of carnage that was sort of ensuing. You managed to sort of sneak out to the inside of turn 2, but just talk us through what happened in that opening few corners, because I think you're the only person here on the podium who was anywhere near, that fight up at the front.
Yeah, I had an awful start. I had no clue how you should do a start on what conditions, but I had an awful start. I lost so many positions, and then further ahead, there was carnage turn 1, and I tried to avoid it, but I got caught up, and then I just fought back.
Well, Jake, fought back you did, and fought back you did well, so congratulations on the P2. Sindako said he was happy for the team. You said you're happy as well, and well, for the team, for you, a great result. So congratulations, and thank you as always for taking the time out to interview here in the comments as well.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Alrighty, that was Jake, our P2 finisher, and now it is finally time to speak to our race winner of the evening. It is Mr. Dougie Falcons. It is the Aston Martin. And my oh my, what a race for you in the end of this one. It was wet conditions, wet to inner, safety car in it, wheel-to-wheel exchanges. Man, what a drive, Dougie, and congratulations to you on the victory. How are you feeling?
Quite good. It was quite a fun race. Unexpected win, I'll be honest, because qualifying, I absolutely bottled it, as per. And Yeah, it was just an unexpected win because I didn't think I had pace around here, and even in the wet, I didn't think I had pace, to be honest, to win the race. But it wasn't really about pace; it was all about keeping on track, and that's basically what I did, and I ended up winning it. So it was pretty good, and yeah, that was pretty much it. I was trying to hold on in those last few laps because Jag was flying, catching to me, and so I was just holding on pretty much for dear life for that win. So luckily we got it, and yeah, it was pretty good.
You had a thrilling drive in this one, and the conditions, I think, presenting challenges for everybody, giving everybody a little bit of a surprise as well coming into the session. Everybody kind of having that phase, that stint to come up to grip and get everything kind of dialed in after the dry qualifying. Was there a lot of adapting to you in that first stint, or were you kind of comfortable right off the hop? Just talk us through the conditions in this race for you.
Well, for me, I don't know about Robert. I think most people got it a little bit more suited earlier than I did, but for me, it was very tough. I pretty much was like on borderline spinning. I felt like I was going to spin in like every corner I was going into. So, I was pretty much like nervous from like that, like basically on the entire wet stint. And then when the safety car came out, sorry, for the intermediates, it felt better. It didn't feel like it was terrible. And that gave me a little bit more confidence to try and push the intermediates a bit more. But yeah, I still had the thought of spinning or crashing out in the back of my mind. I even crashed in qualifying. I crashed in qualifying, so that also like stuck in my back of my mind. If I was crashing in the dry, God knows what I was going to do in the wet. So, yeah, it was very tough. But luckily we didn't make any mistakes and we hold out for the win.
Yeah, it was a great win in the end. Unicorn, any questions for Dougie after that campaign?
Yeah, well, Dougie, obviously, the safety car restart, we've touched on it a little bit, but it looked like you might be under a little bit of pressure. I forget, but I think it was the Axial behind you there, but it looked like he might get you into turn one. Were you worried when that restart happened that you were, going to lose the position into, the first corner on that lap?
On the safety car restart? Yeah, we were going side by side. I was trying to hold my cool and trying to break a little bit later than normal. Try to like hold the position. I'll try getting the position, but I think he probably would have had it because I had to give him the space in the inside too. So it would have been tough, but unfortunately enough, he got hit from behind. In my case, but it was unlucky for him. He got hit from behind by someone, and I think he had to get sent off. Got a penalty for it, but yeah, it was gonna be tough. If we didn't overtake him in the first couple laps, I think it was probably his win, because just how his pace was very strong and just me holding on for dear life, I think it was probably enough. But yeah, stars had to align, and it just worked out in the end, and it ended up being my first ever MRL win.
Yeah, absolutely. Your third podium of the season, of course, your first win, like you mentioned, and obviously that's a great result heading in to the break week. So Dougie, congratulations, your first win, and I'm sure it won't be your last either. But thank you as always for taking the time out to interview, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time in Suzuka.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
That was a huge race, George, and it was a really fun race to watch after all things said and done. I really enjoyed getting to see the wet conditions. You know how I'm always talking about wet conditions, and I think Monza really came through, provided us some good action. Of course, we're not done yet with Italy. We have one more race this week, and that will be tomorrow. The Tier 1 racing action, that will be at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 8 p.m. British Summer Time, and that is 9 p.m. for our good friends in Central Europe. And my oh my, what a race that is shaping up to be, considering the 5 races we've already seen here through MRL Season 5. And then we're going to be off for a round break. We're going to be 1 week break, then into Suzuka. But my oh my, this Tier 2 division, did they ever light up the track today in the wet conditions? Unicorn, any last messages and mentions from you before we wrap things up tonight?
Yes, Jeff, it was a really awesome race. Like you said, the wet conditions, the wets to inters, you always love to see that dynamic. It's such a challenge for the drivers, and that makes it interesting to watch for us. But the safety car came out at a pretty convenient time for that switch, so we didn't get to see it to its full confusion potential. But a great race, and like you said, Tier 1 tomorrow. Very, very much looking forward to that. But thank you all so much for watching. We'll be here back again, same time, same place tomorrow. But until then, take care. Thank you all so much for watching.